could this be the most broken NBA 2K yet? With the return of moves like the momentum dribble, curry slide, the misdirection dribble, expanding signature animations for bigger builds, and in my career, build specializations, max plus twos, custom takeovers that could make my career play more like my team. But more importantly, where's the talk on defense? So before you get too excited or too worried, let's break everything down. So I'm not going to spend too much time on the builder, but in keeping with the theme of this might be the most broken 2K yet, there are a few things that I found interesting. I wanted to focus on the changes and improvements that 2K is trying to make with badges, takeovers, and cap breakers, which is essentially more ways to improve your build after you made it and perhaps make them even more overpowered than before. So we're all familiar with your max plus ones. This increases the potential badge level by up to 1. So for example, if in 2K25 your shifty shooter only got up to Hall of Fame, but you specialize in moving shots, then you use your max plus 1 to your shifty shooter and turn it into legend shifty shooter. Where things can get potentially more interesting is now that there are max plus 2s. Increase the potential of your badge level by up to 2. And okay, so this is potentially huge for sort of trying to optimize your build, right? Now you have to make the decision. Are you fine with a 91 mid-range, for example, that gets you up to gold shifty shooter, gold deadeye, and maybe Hall of Fame set shot specialist? Well, now with max plus 2s, you can turn your gold shifty shooter into legend shifty shooter, for example, and use your cap breakers differently. So these are ways where you can make your build more overpowered, but it's also about optimizing what the best strategy is in terms of making your build that much more powerful. Other badge perks that are introduced in 2K26 are your takeover surge, which basically increases your badge potential by up to 1 for a specific badge. As long as these are equipped, these will activate once you get to takeover level 5. So this is another boost to your takeover. Other than an increase in your attributes by up to +7, you get your takeover ability, and now you get a boost for your specific badge. Next would be Hot Start, which is activated in early portions of the games, and I think the inverse of this is your Clutch Gene, which activates during high pressure situations, including late game situations in the park or at the end of the fourth and overtime. So here we're looking at the max plus 1 and badge perk menu for 2K26. Basically, this gives you an idea of how broken this might be, because just take a look at this. You got max plus 1s, max plus 2s, and then max plus 1s and plus 2s for one of 5 different areas in the game, which is your shooting, your finishing, your playmaking, your defense, and I think your rebounding. And I'll tell you more about these later on. Essentially, once you've maxed everything out, combined with your cap breakers, you can have insane builds in 2K26. Another area where you can boost your my player once you've made it and you've allocated all the attributes is through build specialization. So this is linked to the max plus 1 and plus 2 for the different areas of the game, which I talked about earlier, and these are going to be permanent. So you can, for each save, so basically you have to have 5 different builds where you specialize in a specific area, because you're only able to specialize for one area for each build. This means if you want to max out your player, you're going to have to make 5 builds, which depending on the cost of VC could be very expensive. So again, build specializations are basically quests you can do whether offline or online in my player, and you can only specialize in one of 5 areas for each build. So you're gonna have to make minimum of 5 builds, for example, if you want to specialize in each. So you got your finishing, shooting, playmaking, defense, or rebounding. So here, once you progress through the quest line, you can basically get different rewards such as skill boosts, apparel and cosmetics, archetype names, but not cosmetic stuff, but also you get additional cap breakers for that specific skill area, which you can also use for physicals. So cap breakers earned through build specializations can be used only for that skill area, but also for any of your physicals. So you can get a max of 5 cap breakers from build specializations and use that, let's say, generically for, let's say, speed if you want to. So again, this is all about trying to strategize what's the best way to make your build, optimize it, and find the best path towards whether you want to be a specialist or now an all-around player and just basically use your cap breakers to max out other attributes. So again, whether you want to extend your primary skill or be more well-rounded in your secondary skills, build specialization is a new way to make your My Player even better. And the thing about these build specializations is that once you unlocked it for a specific build, this carries over to your other builds. So there's going to be that strategy. Okay, which build specialization should I focus on first? Let's say I did the math, for example, for shooting, and to get to level 9 of your shooting quests, you need to make, I think, 2,000 middies or threes. Let's say you want to grind My Player. It's about a 20-hour grind to get 2,000 mid-rangers. If you assume that you make 50 middies in one game, for example, I mean, that's a long grind, but not impossible for sure. So this is actually a good change for 2K26. So cap breakers, the best way to use them in 2K25 is to max out your ceiling. The value of those additional cap breakers is more impactful for your higher tier skills. So for example, going from 94 to 95 is more impactful than going from 25 to 26 for any attribute. I mean, that just basic sense. What 2K26 does now is that cap breakers not only can raise your ceiling, but it can also raise your floor. And the relativity is a bit more balanced because, as I mentioned earlier on, one cap breaker is more valuable at the 90s range compared to the 20s range. So what 2K does now is for those attributes where your original attributes max out at a lower rating, your cap breakers will become more impactful at the beginning and then sort of tail off towards the end, diminishing returns basically. You are not just limited to maxing out your perimeter defense. Again, as you see here, above the 90s, your cap breakers only get a +1. But let's say if you're at the 30s, a cap breaker can have a value of a +12 at the start and then a +5 at the end, making cap breakers more impactful at the lower end. So again, now you have the option to maybe make a more well-balanced build as opposed to a build that has a higher ceiling overall. So for example, if we take a look at the driving dunk, you go from 25 to 39 to 51 to 61 to 69, nice, and then to 76. So the cap breakers now have the ability to raise your, let's say, your attribute from being completely useless to now very serviceable. That mid 70s is very serviceable if you just want to do basic run and dunk stuff. Where 2K26 takes it a little bit further is if we're assuming that we get 9 cap breakers as your level 40s, +5 for starter 3, +5 for vet 2, and then +5 for, I think, legend. So you got a max of +15 from your rep rewards, a max of 9 from your seasonal rewards, so that's 24. And then another 5 for each attribute of specialization. Let's say if you unlock everything, that's close to 30 cap breakers, which is insane. Like, you can have a build that can potentially do it all or specialize in a few skills but be that much more annoying. So this is one way that 2K26 can potentially break the game. Of course, the seasonal cap breakers take more time to unlock because you're gonna have to play for the 9 entire months, but it's not unheard of for. So yeah, I mean, if people like slice through a lot of these ways to improve their builds, we can get potentially very broken builds even at the beginning of the cycle. So NBA 2K26 is gonna be a faster game, but not only that, 2K is giving you more tools. Now, loosening restrictions on certain layups. For example, here the Jason Williams package is going to be available for 610 or less, but they're also going to expand the dribble moves available to bigger builds. As you can see here, it's really slim pickings for a lot of your bigger wings depending on the specific attribute. And people will usually converge into either Devin Booker cross or Austin Reeves cross for low dribble builds, basically showing you that they're trying to encourage more people to be a little bit more spicy and have more build diversity. The example that Mike Wang gave is basically giving players with up to 6'10 of height Jason Williams layup style. But if you take a look at Jason Williams layup style, I don't know whatever height you want to choose, but if you don't want to troll, I don't see why anyone would want to use these SIGs. But let's break down some other SIGs that were sort of sneakily made available through the Courtside Report video. Brandon Ingram only available for heights of at least 6'5 and 6'10. Nothing new there. Kyrie Irving, same requirement from 2K25, 90 ball handle under 6'5. Nothing new there as well. Okay, Allen Iverson again, 85 ball handle only for under 6'5. Michael Jordan, 75 ball handle for those under 6'10 and at least 6'5. LeBron James, 80 ball handle. He's got a nice push cross. Height at least 6'5 and under 6'10. Once again, nothing changed there. And then if you look at Reggie Jackson, 80 ball handle and under 6'5. So, what this means to me is that 2K is going to be selective as to which signature animations will be made available for taller builds. And if Kyrie Irving, for example, isn't available for bigger builds, I think that's great. So it's going to be important because just one of these small guard animations sneaks through to big wings, and just one of these overpowered big wing animations sneaks through for 6'10 and 6'11 builds. You have something that's potentially dangerous. But then going to your go-to shots, for example, what you have here, Tyrese Halliburton under 6'10, nothing new there. Harden under 6'10, nothing new there. And Jalen Green, height under 6'10, nothing new there. Eric Gordon, height under 6'5, nothing new there. SGA, height under 6'10, again, nothing new there. Paul George, De'Aaron Fox, height under 6'5, nothing new there. And Darius Garland, in my opinion, one of the most powerful go-to shots in the game, height under 6'5. So, what this basically means to me is that don't get too excited about that tweet from Mike Wang yet. I don't believe he's going to make too much accessible for bigger builds, just because one of the things that they emphasized at the beginning of the Courtside Report is to make sure that it's still a balanced experience because of taking into account height, for example. And this is something that 2K mentioned specifically in the Courtside Report. Basically, now they're going to increase height for my players to 7'4", so rejoice for all those people making Wemby builds. This decision was made by popular demand. However, the My Player builder has been balanced to ensure that all height measurements, short and tall, can be effective against anyone on the court and encourage more build diversity. So while they're still opening up signature animations for taller builds, for example, as I discussed earlier on, this doesn't mean that all builds will get all sorts of crazy signature animations. So I want you to temper your expectations. Because if they allow just about any height to get some of the best SIGs in the game, as you can see here, just the way 2K25 was programmed, for example, taller builds already have an advantage in that you can't contest them. But give them some of the best SIGs in the game, then you get chaos. This is basically the My Team conundrum, where my team, as you can see here with Bol, is basically made to break the game. And there's no easier way to break the game than to give him some of the most insane SIGs. So for example, here, I gave this 7'4" demigod the De'Aaron Fox push cross. Just take a look at the distance that you can travel. Again, 2K is giving you more tools by bringing back some fan favorite moves like the momentum cross, which I know a lot of people spammed in past 2Ks. You saw momentum spams. You're also going to see a return of another fan favorite move, which is the misdirection dribble. Something that they introduced in, I think, 2K22 for the first time, but they took out in 2K25. Fun fact, what you're seeing here is 2K25 Community Day clips. And as you can see in 2K25 Community Day, the misdirection dribble was actually still part of the game. I think they were taken out to include your escape dribble combo moves, that is by holding turbo and flicking your right stick from left to right or right to left. But there you go. But before you get too excited, why I think 2K is still focused on making sure that you're not able to spam these moves is they're still introducing mechanics such as the adrenaline bar, still building up on this from past 2Ks. In particular for 2K25, there have been some minor tweaks to adrenaline bars. If you spam too many escape moves in a short amount of time, it will drain an adrenaline bar. So I think this is one way that 2K is still going to try to attempt to balance the game and not make it too dribble spam heavy. I think this is still the same dev team. They're still focused on making sure that basketball is a realistic experience. Whether you agree with this direction or not, at least 2K is giving you more tools and more ways to make the game more fun for you. But the other way, I think 2K is going to try to regulate glitchy movement. I mean, we're getting faster movement, allegedly, is the new machine learning technology that will help determine your lower body pose matching, or basically motion matching, to make sure that the footwork doesn't move in unnatural motions. I've flagged this in my gameplay discussion before, but what I think this could do is potentially regulate glitchy movement in 2K26. That's just my guess. I don't know for sure, but the focus is on making sure that footwork is more natural, there's no sliding, and I think the cancel system is going to be basically the way that people can circumvent the restrictions that the motion matching system will introduce, but we'll have to wait for sure. I'm sure people will be creative to see how they can break the game, and I'm sure there's going to be that avenue for a lot of players still. But what I think a lot of people did do in 2K25 is lab how to do that. The best arcade style players that I've seen were able to take advantage of canceling and find the right signature animations to make sure that you can still move in ways that are still, kind of glitchy, but not necessarily that game breaking. Now, focusing on playstyle diversity, shout out to Big Heck. Basically, Mike Wang is saying that if you play good defense, teams won't be shooting 70% three on you. Paint and mid-range scoring is very strong this year. Now, that point on mid-range scoring is not something that's new. I think this is the third consecutive 2K, maybe fourth, where mid-range is actually extremely good. So what you're seeing here are clips of me basically dominating in the mid-range, finding those money type moves that gets me open in the mid-range to cook my defender. That's not something new, and I've shown that regardless of the speed of the animations, if you know how to get to your spots, you will be able to dominate in 2K, especially in 2K25 where mid-range was really powerful. So this isn't going to be something that's new for 2K26. Where I think it might get a little bit crazy is if you look at this clip, Zubac had his hands up defense. And sure, this could be on the easiest difficulty. They can clip hunt to get the specific clip, but I tried to recreate something like this in 2K25, and even with the slow Jokic hook shot on Hall of Fame difficulty, that was still considered open. So the contest system and the improved and how it affects the improved paint scoring is going to be essential for game balance. We know in past 2Ks, for example, that post scorers, particularly a lot of those drop steppers and hook shot abusers, can have a lot of success if it's not programmed correctly. I'm talking about both defense and offense. And with the expanded post system, I think this is something that we're gonna have to monitor. And again, I made this point in my past video. Defense sort of felt like an afterthought in the Courtside Report blogs, and even in the Q&As. I'm not getting anything concrete that leads me to believe that there were some big leaps on defense. A lot of it relies, based on the blog, on the body up and collision system. So for example, 2K16 is notorious for the brick walling or the stone walling of your matchup. Basically, once you bump into them, it impedes their movement, impedes their progress, and basically a player has to reset. Will 2K26 be along those same lines? It's weird because the communication is a bit confusing. On the one hand, they say that your body ups and collisions will allow you to become a more effective defender, but they're still also emphasizing that there's still going to be that freedom of movement depending on your physicality, and I suspect a lot of this will focus on your ability to counter these body ups with your go-to animations, for example, your crossovers and some badges like strong handle, for example. But one thing that gives me a little bit of concern is that defense is going to do a lot of heavy lifting. I mean, that's true for every year. But if they made the game faster, if they gave you more tools, if they expanded the animation library for taller builds, and give players access to more ways to improve their builds one step further with your max plus ones, plus twos, build specializations, and custom takeovers. Defense is going to do a lot of heavy lifting. And unfortunately, I haven't read anything that leads me to believe that defense received the same amount of attention that offense did. Now, to be fair, I actually think defense in 2K25 was fine, except for a few key areas. I think the way pick dodger works still needs help. I think steals were a bit annoying with how cheap they were compared to your other important attributes such as ball handling and passing, and that led 2K25 to be played in a way that focused more on blitzing and bump steals rather than being positionally sound on defense. But you can still play good defense in 2K25. So if 2K26 just ups this a little bit more, then we'll be in good shape. I mean, the game speed should also affect defense. They're now saying that steals, blocks, your cutoffs are more skill based on top of an improved body up and collision system. I think defense is going to be an important key. How they tune the contest system and how that affects the green window is going to be one of the most important things for this 2K. And I need to see it. I need to see it in practice. All of this stuff, these new tools, these ways to improve your build is fine. The game falls apart if defense is not up to par. So defense, once I get my hands on the game, is going to be an important focus. We're going to take a look at how heights are affected, for example, by different types of contests. We're going to look at how good movement is, for example. But if you take a look at the courtside report blog, you have 1 line, 2 lines, 4 lines on defense, which just not enough at this point. So defense is going to be one of the keys to this game, because I think the worst case scenario for this, and that 2K26 is actually broken in the fun way, right? Broken in the way that most of the community wants it to be, then yeah, we might be in for a long year. But all I'm gonna say is that this is what the community asked for. I think it's clear that 2K26, at least the initial information, a lot of it is in direct response to what people didn't like about 2K25. So 2K saying, you know what, you want more SIGs for bigger builds, you want taller height, you want more ways to break the my player builder, let's have at it. So that's going to be important. I think defense, one of the aspects of the game that hasn't received enough love, and we're going to have to wait and see how defense actually plays out. So is 2K26 going to be the most broken 2K ever? I don't know. The potential for it to be broken is there. We're just going to have to wait and find out. But part of me is a bit excited, a little bit worried, but at the same time, this could be the 2K where everything that they've been working towards for the past few years comes together, but we'll have to wait and see. So hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. This will be my last video breaking down 2K26, unless there's some big gameplay news. I'm going to release one more video on 2K25, then I'm going to take a break and start posting once we get the game after early access. So I'll be on a bit of a break until August 29. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for the great year. I've had my most successful year on YouTube, but once again, it's thanks to you guys. I hope you enjoy the very detailed breakdown where I try to break things down as logically as possible. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in 2K26. Peace.